Patrick, a couple weeks ago, I was just like, oh, angels, right? Oh, here, they gave us a Serra Angel for the cost of a Serra Angel, and they just, like, threw in a Grave Pack. They have, like, so many Serra Angels in this set, though.
Yeah. There's starting to get to be a lot of Serra Angels in this set. Not the least of which is the one that comes from your land, right? Like, you know that cycle of tap lands that produce one color, but you can tap them and pay some mana and sacrifice them. And when you're paying some mana, it has to be 2 mana of a different color and 1 mana of the same color, and then you get some effect, right?
They've all got some kind of thing that you, at the right cost, you would probably want.
Particularly when you're getting it out of your resource row, you know. But in this case, Great Hall of Starnheim is it's a tapped black mana source. The ability is tap, pay white, black, and sacrifice Great Hall of Starnheim and a creature you control to create a 4/4 white angel warrior creature token with flying and vigilance, and activate this ability only anytime you can play a sorcery.
So, couple of things on this. Requires white, like you said. In fact, it requires double white. Doesn't give you any white. So, you can start this thing out. It's going to come into play tapped. And, you know, insult to injury, you also have to have a creature. Which, you know, this feels a little bit more like a creature enchantment type effect than an actual just creature effect to me.
Really?
Yeah, like you get a creature, you get an upgrade. It's not like you just get a thing.
Well, it depends, right? Like, if you're just doing it straight up on the merits, then yeah. But, like, it's obviously different if you're sacrificing something that gives you a little bit of value for the for doing it. You know, there's plenty of creatures that they get better when you kill them.
Oh, sure, like some sort of Hunted Witness or Cauldron Familiar type creature.
Right. So, I mean, and, you know, it remains to be seen what exactly Angel decks realistically look like. But I also don't know that you need this in an Angel deck anyway. As long as you just have some cheap creatures that are worth sacrificing, right? Like, you don't have to be playing this in an Angel deck. You get a little bit of benefit that way. It's like Warriors. You don't have to play this in a Warrior deck.
Well, let's scope this out. I think there's at least 2 or 3 broad kind of things to talk about, because this is a land, right? So I think what you might not want is to have one of these decks that they're already encouraging to have like 30, 40, some kind of land, right? Like whether it's a modal double-faced land or, you know, some other weird combination, or they just have a ton of land because they're a Yorion deck. Just give them like a free creature, right? So I think that's part of it, right? You have these decks that can afford to throw away a land, you know, later in the game, but you don't want those decks to just have a 4/4 vigilance without paying something, right? So even if it's an Omen of the Sun token, like I think that's part of it.
Well, I mean, 3 mana plus, you know, you sack the land, but that's not very much for a 4/4 flying vigilance.
Oh no, but like you said before, this is, quote, coming out of your resource row, right? So that's not very much to ask for when it's kind of a bonus resource. You're not using a spell slot for it.
Totally.
But, you know, on the subject of Angel decks, if there's black-white Angel decks, which I think there might be, I think this card will be, you know, it depends how many land they have, but I think this would be a popular card to play in black-white Angel decks specifically.
Like, do you think that you go all the way to doing stuff like playing Serrated Scorpion? I mean, I'm sure there's a deck that has more of a sacrifice bent that can also take advantage of this. But, like, how much are you imagining this one's primary use just being, you know, how much are you trying to, you know, sacrifice stuff that doesn't really matter, like a Whisper Squad, versus sacrificing stuff that you actually want to, like a Serrated Scorpion, versus sacrificing stuff that just happens to be cheap and on message anyway, and if you can upgrade it to a 4/4, that's great, like a Selfless Savior, versus stuff that just low opportunity cost in your deck elsewise, like Castle Ardenvale.
I mean, Castle Ardenvale is a great example. I was thinking like the most likely place that I imagine playing this myself to begin with is an Omen of the Sun token. Right? I can just totally imagine, like, that's what I'm sacrificing, which is a little bit different than any of the things that you asked, right? So it's very low. It's very low kind of opportunity cost, but it's not beneficial in the way of like a Serrated Scorpion is. So, but it's on color.
Dude, what about a Mardu sacrifice deck? Like, I sure would like to sacrifice their creature that costs 3 or less.
I'd like that. I can imagine that. So, at any
just
kind
claim
of
the firstborn.
Yeah,
with this?
claim or
that doesn't take that much mana.
No, it takes 5, right?
Yeah,
and that's also utterly devastating. Like every time somebody claimed you and then Witches Ovened it, that was pretty bad. Like that, the thing is, every single time that happened to me, I was just like, "Come on, dude, it's not that bad, right?" Like you've been Swords to Plowshares before. This isn't. Okay, I did just take 6 to the face. All right, still, it's not that bad. But if you 6 to the face them and then you also get a 4/4 Vigilance Flyer, I think that's a very exciting spot to do this. Yes, but I mean, other control magics are probably fine, not just to claim the firstborn.
Well, the nice thing about claim is it only costs 1.
Yes.
Being able to do it in the same turn is pretty nice with a card like this that has the activation, Are there any good ways to really abuse it being a land and, go into your graveyard? Like,
less so in Standard, but, there is infinity, and by infinity I mean at least 2 that I can think of off the top of my head, sort of Crucible of the Worlds and what's the name of it? G1, Get Lands Back, Dredge.
Life from the Loam?
Life from the Loam. Right, there's I can't believe I can remember that one's name. So there's tons of those cards, right? And by tons, I mean at least 2, that are widely played in formats where those cards are legal.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, like...
It's a little slow if you get... Like, being a tap land in this spot, it's kind of... a hefty price for powered formats.
It's slowish, right? So decks that play Crucible Worlds are in it for the slow. Right? I mean, just they are. I mean, I don't think that it would be that prohibitive to them that this costs kind of a lot of mana and, costs a lot to use and it costs extra because it comes into play tapped. So they're like, I'm in it. I mean, those are people who are like, I'm going to play a 40-turn game. That's the game I want to play. They're okay with it, I think.
Okay, I mean, but what about just, I don't know, is it crazy just playing with stuff like Rada, Heart of Keld? I mean, maybe the colors are just bananas on that particular one, but
I think
is there some way just like there's just nothing too much in Standard right now, but it feels like there's got to be some ways to maybe this will just end up being like, oh, you just incidentally play one of these. Because like at the end of the day, how many tap sources of black can you really play? But
I think either you have to be a deck that has so much land, it doesn't matter to you because it's unlikely to be pinching you on the turn that it matters, right? Or less likely than it is for decks that don't play so much land, right? Or you're a deck that's in it for theme, right? You either have stuff that's going to be synergizing with it, whether it's the Omen of the Sun.
Ancient Green Warden, man. You 5/7 reach for 6. You may play lands from your graveyard. If a land entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control, the trigger that ability in an additional time. Or you just don't think that there's just too much competition for things like 6 mana is a big ask.
I mean, that's real slow. That's slow, off color. I don't know. I'm certain somebody will commander that. Like, I just don't know about standarding it.
All right. Well, what about a slightly more exciting, quote unquote, source of angels, Starnheim Unleashed, which is 2 white sorcery. You can get a 4/4 flying vigilance creature, angel, warrior, all that stuff, right? So you get your Serra Angel, but with a warriorness for 4, which is already a 1 mana discount. But it has foretell. And so you can pay 2, set it aside, and then on a later turn you can pay XX white and then you get X 4/4 white angel creature tokens. So you can play it. So the options, you can foretell it on turn 2, and then have a 4/4 flyer on turn 3 if you just want to kind of do the echo thing. You can play it on turn 4 straight up. You can foretell it in one of the first 4 turns of the game in order to, on turn 5, play a Broodmate Dragon a turn ahead of schedule. And then from there, you just get more. You know? You could have the potential turn 7 play 3 4/4s, but a lot of the power for this is split between the modes of 4/4 flyer on turn 3, 4/4 flyer on turn 4, and Broodmate Dragon on turn 5.
I really want this card to be good. I just got the feels when I saw this card. Right? I mean,
is it the amount that it's evoking Decree of Justice for you?
Yes.
Or the
but there's no question.
The Miracle one? Yeah.
No, I mean I played Decree of Justice every time I could, right? So the difference between this and the other kind of Serra Angel for 4 in the set is I feel like Starnheim Unleashed could be good in a deck that had a lot of Angel type cards, but I think it's also one of those cards like when you and Paul played like the one Secure the Wastes or something in your Azorius or Esper decks in the sideboard or something, like here's a card you just play one copy in a control deck and it doesn't have to be on theme. It can be there for you on turn 3 or 4 like you said, or it can be like your sledgehammer at the end of the game. It's going to play a bunch of different roles. You might side it in just to be fast against beatdown. You might side it in to be inevitable. You might just play one. I think like it could totally be in a non-angel deck and be awesome. I'm in my imagination anyway. Or it can.
I think so.
Like just
I think so too.
Like I thought of it more as like, all right, for 5, which is Serra Angel cost, you get 2 Serra Angels. When
2 plus 5, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. But when you describe it as Broodmate Dragon, now I'm just like, wow, that's really good. I said the same thing, but even Broodmate Dragon doesn't even have Vigilance. So I'm like, all right, 2 Serra Angels for 5 is way better than 1 Serra Angel for 5.
Easier to cast.
Like, I feel like this card, I just want it to be good so bad. And I think it will be. But the thing I was a little second-guessing myself on was, Legion Angel hasn't done very much, and Legion Angel seems like it's a 4x flying creature for 4, and it has a lot of this going on.
Yeah, but the 4-cost version of Starnheim Unleashed is the least desirable of the 3. And then second of all, it's not like a 4/4 flyer for 4 is good these days.
No.
But a 4/3 Legion Angel is a good card. It's just, there's lots of good cards. And the difference between a 4/3 versus a 4/4 with Vigilance, I mean, that's a big deal. But you have to pay 8 mana before you got your money from Legion Angel. Before you have to pay 12 before you got the 3 copies. But like Starnheim Unleashed, for only 7 mana, you've already got 2 4/4 flying Vigilances. And part of the range on Starnheim Unleashed is that ability to going long just really take over.
Yeah, that's what's super exciting to me. I just want to like tap 12 mana or something like.
Well, 12 is a weird amount to tap, but sure. Like 11.
13. It's funny. You went 11, I went 13.
You got it. I just don't want to wait.
So, yeah, I'm excited by that. And then there's yet more Serra. There's so many Serra Angels. Is there 4 different Serra Angel Maker kind of cards in this set?
All kinds. I mean, it's a token in this set.
So, the other one is the Black-White Saga. Firja's, how do you say it? Firja's Retribution. 1 white B. See, I feel like this one is going to be... I think it's like comparably really awesome to me as Starnheim Unleashed, but this one seems like it would only really be great in an Angel deck, but I could just totally see it being good anyway, right? Like great in an Angel deck.
No, Angels only.
Angels only? But if Angels are a thing, like this is a thing, right?
So, on the way in, you get your 4 mana 4/4 Flying Angel. It's a little harder to cast than the Starnheim, plus you don't have that option for the turn 2 into 3. But you do have the threat that on turn 5, until end of turn, angels you control gain tap, destroy target creature with power less than this creature's power. That is situationally amazing. And it could be okay with just the one flying angel. I think it's not like it's embarrassing to just play by itself. I just think it's important to have as part of the range the prospect of killing two things.
Sure, or more.
Or more importantly, killing one, but just having more resilience against removal.
But the thing is, the angel has vigilance, right? So that's good, right? Is that a good combo, 1 and 2?
Yeah, if your token lives, yeah. And then on turn 3, the chapter 3 anyway, angels you control gain double strike until end of turn. Big deal in an angel deck.
Yeah, so this is unlikely to just wham bam kill him with its own chapter 3, right? Because that's only 8 plus 4 between those. So you kind of need more angels to really benefit from that double striking overrunish sort of chapter 3. But I feel like this is a powerful card in the right situation.
Yeah, and it's yet another enchantment you can blink with Yorion. It's interesting looking at what these angel decks might look like. Because, man, they sure do have a lot of ability to generate some serious board presence with tokens and them having implied value above and beyond just the token itself. Makes it really seem like it's going to be warped what the battle is about. Because you're not going to... I don't think you can really... I think that the majority of strategies are not going to want to compete with this sort of a thing straight up. They're going to need to be able to capitalize on the fact that you're using an abundance of certain types of things that are exploitable, like so many flyers and so many tokens and so many enchantments.
Yeah, it's going to be, I think, really dependent on kind of what the rest of the metagame as a whole looks like to see like what the angel decks themselves look like. Because if it's all like blisteringly fast beatdown decks, right? You're going to build your angel deck one way, which is like, all right, how do I meet them at a certain speed?
Well, I think that you got all the tools for.
Yeah, you slow them down. Like, all right, now I'm just going to be in a situation where I'm tapping 4s and 5s every turn. Every single move I make is like worth three of their cards, and I've got good blockers, right? Like that's a thing. But if like the format's about like Ugin, right? Like, all right, here's my deck. I just invest a ton of mana into putting casting costs 0s into play or casting costs 5s into play that don't immediately win the game. I mean, like it's not going to be good for you if the format's about Ugin.
Yeah, I think that one of the questions for this black-white sort of angel deck is going to be, what do you do about people who go bigger than you? Ugin being one part of that, but there's actually a lot of different ways that people can potentially be going over the top of you, and you're just playing out more 4/4 flyers. What it kind of says to me is that you should really prioritize disruption. Like if there's some amount of a combination of both potentially disruption like duress or whatever, but then also potentially angles of attack that win in other ways. Like for instance, imagine if you had the Immortal Sun. You know, obviously it's not legal in Standard, but if you had access to the Immortal Sun, that would be such a powerful way to preempt and trump an Ugin deck.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what that card did, right? That's up Planeswalkers.
And so if there's some other, it doesn't have to be just the Immortal Sun. It could be a lot of other things. If there's some card or cards you can play that give you an ability to present some other threats to hit from other angles, I think that's also a legitimate way to try to counteract people who are going to go over the top of your plan A.
Do you think, like, just playing the new Vraska's Contempt, the one that doesn't gain 2 life, is an option, or you're just going to be too far behind?
You want to do a bad Vraska's Contempt on Ugin? No, that sounds terrible.
You're just destroyed, right?
Well, first of all, one, that's not even a good answer to Ugin.
Well,
two, there are so many other things that might happen besides Ugin. It's not like Ugin is the only way people can go over the top of you. Dude, what if somebody just bounces your creature? You're just making these tokens. Somebody just plays into the Royal, you're like way the worse of it.
Oh, wow, man. I forgot there were like 3 Into the Royals that are legal right now.
Right. Plus, there's like all kinds of planeswalkers and creatures that do stuff on the way in. Like somebody just brazen borrowers you, you're way the worst of it. So I think you got to just
naming commonly played excellent blue cards.
Well, my point is, it's not that this strategy's bad. It's that obviously level 0 of just play some really good, cards that don't line up well. That gets thwarted because they may be really good cards, but they don't line up well. But like we actually have the ability to play stuff that lines up well and to figure out how to shore up some of our weaknesses, some of our problems. And part of that is like I'll give you an example. What you want to do is figure out what is it that's actually what are the problems you're really having, right? Like, is the problem really the Ugin? Is it that it's like locked up and then they go over the top of you with Ugin? Like, I don't think so. I think it's very likely that by the time that the Ugin happens, there's like a lot of stuff that could have happened between now and then. It's not like things are at a standstill and you need something that just rips everything apart.
Well, I think it depends, right? But I think that if you're playing against an Ugin, a deck that has maybe 4 Ugins, right? Like people play multiple Ugins, they often play 4. The problem really is the Ugin. If your deck is about playing a bunch of permanents out that are expensive and make tokens.
Well, but that doesn't have to be. Like, it doesn't have to be that Ugin is the problem. Because, like, for instance, the more stuff you play like Duress, and the more stuff you play that's like land that still has abilities, and the more that you can actually be snowballing some sort of an advantage you're generating. Because if all your creatures do is attack for 4, it's not like that you are necessarily even that far ahead by the time your opponent drops Ugin. But if you can actually like put some pressure on your opponent, I don't know, man. Am I just a maniac for not being as afraid of Ugin?
I just think like I don't know what the deck looks like. But this kind of deck that I'm envisioning, right? It has certain kinds of decks. Just historically, you would just want to play against those kind of decks, like
of course.
Deck, right?
But that's not the interesting part. You have a million ways you could beat an all creature deck, like a deck full of small creatures with your deck that has 4/4 flying vigilance creatures that can kill things that are smaller. The question is, how do you interact with people who hit you from the awkward angles, right?
I mean, when I've tried to do it over the course of time, almost always it was a combination of a non-interactive card advantage engine and disruption, right? So you're talking about...
that's not that. Now you're talking. That sounds like a great plan.
Some kind of, I'm just going to say like treasure map sort of thing. Like, all right, I can draw 2 or 3 cards a turn, and I'm going to use those extra cards to be duresses, and then I'm just going to pressure you with treetop villages while taking you have relatively narrow answers to my good cards, right? I'm going to take those cards away and then hit you with these things, and you're going to be like, oh, but my cards are so good. And be like, yeah, but you're actually not very good at fighting a 3/3 land, like stuff like that, right?
So I mean, does Elspeth's Nightmare do anything for you?
In the Angel deck?
Yeah.
Huh. It's not one that I would have thought of to begin with. I'm just evaluating.
So first of all, as far as duresses go, this is like a great main deckable duress, right?
Not embarrassing.
Second of all, you're already going to play Yorion. You have all these enchantments that blink to give you something dope, right?
Not only am I going to play Yorion, but there are so many cards I want to play, this just gives me an excuse to not have to constrain myself to 60 of them.
Sure. And then exiling people's graveyards. People who play Ugin, there's like an above average likelihood that they care, right?
Yeah, like they got something going on, right?
But remember, you can play Elspeth's Nightmare can take the Ugin out of their hand. Plus, if you play more enchantments, maybe at some point you can even like leverage those for some other enchantment synergy or something, I don't know. Elspeth's Nightmare seems pretty good.
I think you would need to have like a lot of that kind of stuff, right? Like not just 4 of them, right? Like I think, or maybe not, or you just need to be able to like draw like a bunch of cards non-interactively per turn while hassling them with some nonsense. I think that's how you play those matchups, right? So, do
you even need anything more besides just If you just have some Elspeth's Nightmare, if you just have like Elspeth's Nightmare's main deck, and then you board in Duresses, and you got 8, you're kind of rocking and rolling there, right?
It depends what your threat is, right? I remember back when we used to play like blue-green threshold or something. Like the whole trick was you play one enabler and one big guy, and then make them beat you, right? And then so when they have their big thing, then you just play one enabler, and then you play one big guy, and then you make him beat you. And they can't do it that many times. The problem is people who played anything more than that. They're like, all right, I've played like 3 big guys. Like, no. You play 3 big guys, when they wrath you, you lose 3 big guys. Right? Like, you got to be a little disciplined, and you got to know that you're going to be behind on all these trades, and then save up. Use your non-interactive card advantage. Save up so that you have something, and then you do it 2 or 3 times, they might not have enough response. I think. But I think maybe that's what you're saying with the sort of add 4 duress to the 4 Elspeth's Nightmare. Between that and a little discipline in terms of how much you're deploying to the battlefield, they might just run out.
I mean, it doesn't have to just be literally duress. Depending on what else you got to interact with. I mean, it could be agonizing remorse. I mean, I don't want it to be, but it could be that, you know. As far as card advantage engines go, though, do you think there's anything to cling to dust?
It's not...
Or Maze Mind Tome?
I'm way more on Maze Mind Tome than Cling to Dust, in part because if you're already describing this as a Yorion type deck, I mean, that's good. Like, actually, that's pretty perfect, right? Like, Maze Mind Tome, Yorion, hand destruction? That seems like if you had anything on the battlefield, you could potentially just hold your lead for the 2 or 3 turns required to win the game, right? Especially if you've got, like, the Theurge's Retribution or something where your last strike is going to be for, like, 16. You don't have to beat him forever. You just need to get to Chapter 3.
So, what do you think, man? By the way, why would you wouldn't seriously play the Bad Vraska's Contempt. It's just, like, strictly worse than Eat to Extinction in multiple ways, right?
I was just, like, spitballing, like, you know...
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, that card's unplayable, right? Like, it's literally just Eat to Extinction, except harder to cast, and doesn't let you look at the top card of your library and possibly put it in your graveyard.
I wouldn't describe it as unplayable, right?
It's like, strictly worse, right?
It's...
like... You would never want 5 Eat to Extinctions, and that card has 0 advantages over Eat to Extinction.
I was thinking about it. Is it possible we would ever be in a situation where that card is legal and Eat to Extinction is not legal? Yes, that's a possibility. Right? If that's a possibility at some time in the future, that card is two life points off of a card that was, like, widely played. Right? So I don't think it's as good as either card. I'm just imagining that it might have some application in some format. It's not... I don't have this in the past the red line. I'm not saying I would pick it, right? It's just... It could be picked, and... Like, people played Verdigris, right? Like, Verdigris, the Uktabi orangutan with no 2/2 body. Sometimes that's what you have.
Yeah, but, like, we don't. We just concede the Eat to Extinction is... Well, it doesn't matter. You're saying that Vraska's Contempt could be playable, even if it was worse. I said, maybe.
No, I'm just saying, like, as an example, right?
That doesn't help us right now, right?
The really just, you can extrapolate. The question is really, is it only hand destruction, or can we also mix removal into that disruption sort of conversation? And the problem, I think, with just the removal is that if you're specifically trying to interact with an Ugin, they've already got you at the point that you're removing it, right? So they might not have the Ugin anymore, but instead of being down 5 cards, you're down 6, right? It's not a great solution, but it is... I think removal of Planeswalkers has to be in the conversation, even if the conversation shuts it down.
What about... this is a hard way to do it, but what about Glorious Protector? So Glorious Protector is the new Restoration Angel. It's 2 white for a 3/4 flying flash. And when Glorious Protector enters the battlefield, you may exile any number of non-angel creatures you control until Glorious Protector leaves the battlefield. And then it has Foretell of 2 and white. So Obviously, you could foretell it. That's the whole thing. But the idea here is that if your opponent Ugins, you can play your Glorious Protector in response, exile all your creatures, and then have Glorious Protector get Ugined, and then all of your creatures come back. Now, of course, this doesn't work with 4/4 Flying Vigilance Warrior Angel tokens.
For many reasons, right? They're tokens, they're angels.
Right, but is there any amount, is this deck gonna, if your angels are already tokens anyway, what is it that you're sacrificing? Does your deck have a critical mass of other creatures in it?
I don't think so. I think Glorious Protector is a really interesting card, but it seems like it would have not great applicability in an angel theme deck, though.
Really? Well, I don't know how much angel theme deck, right? If you're half angels, you aren't going to blink the tokens anyway.
No.
But you sure do want to blink Yorion. Right? No?
Yeah. I'm just thinking.
Don't want to blink Yorion?
I'm just thinking about the deck building costs associated with this. It's also a 4.
This card resets your Skyclave Apparition. That's pretty good, right?
I'm just imagining I could totally see wanting to play this card. Totally. I think resetting my Skyclave Apparition is a great idea. I could totally see it playing in a Yorion deck. I just don't imagine it playing in a deck that's got 20 angel cards in it. I think it's just too non-bow for those kind of decks. Or I feel like a lot of your creatures are tokens. Just too non-bow.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess I don't know for sure how many angel cards you need before you're an angel deck. I also think it depends on what kind of angels you're playing. But obviously you can't blink this guy with any of them, but some of the angels benefit you from having other creatures that are non-angels. You know?
Sure. I don't know. Totally think this card is... I mean, there's many situations this card just seems amazing to me, right? In response to a Wrath. Right, just like you said, I'd rather trade one creature than multiple creatures, especially if the creatures that I'm blinking all have 187 effects, right? Seems awesome. There's obviously other tricks, right? Blinking, the old combo was a Thrag Tusk, right? Something like that, where you might have leaves the battlefield, as well as come into play abilities.
I'm already picturing it now. You just blinking your Llanowar Visionary. Or even your Runeforged Champion, man.
I was also imagining my Llanowar Visionary. I was, in fact, imagining tapping the Llanowar Visionary after blocking with it to summon the Glorious Protector.
Sick. You mentioned about sagas. There's another saga that kind of caught my eye. The blue-red one, not the Invasion of the Giants. The other one, the sweeper.
The Battle of Frost and Fire.
Yes, Battle of Frost and Fire. 3 blue-red. Chapter 1, Battle of Frost and Fire deals 4 damage to each non-giant creature and each planeswalker. Chapter 2, Scry 3. Chapter 3, when you cast a spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater this turn, draw 2 cards, then discard a card.
So, if you play multiple cards that cost 5 or greater on that turn, you can do a good amount of milling. Or not milling, kind of...
cataloging.
Yeah. So, let's start with Chapter 1. 5 mana for 4 damage to non-giant creatures and planeswalkers? That seems like it should be in the conversation just for Chapter 1. Right?
I don't. I think for 4 mana, it would be good. But I think at 5 mana, by nowadays standards, it would be good. But I don't know. There's already 4 mana deal 4.
Yeah, people play 4 mana deal 4 that doesn't have the giant targeting, non-targeting sort of thing. Right?
Right.
So I think
but that's not even pure upside.
I guess you could be playing against giants.
There's plenty of giant, and somebody else is just bone crusher gianting you. Yeah. But all right. For 5 mana, you're within a mana of being good. What are you getting for that extra mana? The next turn you scry 3?
But the scry 3 sets you up for Chapter 3.
Yeah, if you make it that long, then you get an extra card or two.
Yeah, but you're going to make it that long because even if they're a control deck, you mess up their planeswalkers. If they're not a control deck, you mess up their dudes. Unless they're a combo deck, I like you. I like you in that spot.
Do you know what you can do during Chapter 2? Go get Yorion, so that you for sure have a spell with converted mana cost 5 or greater.
I was just imagining getting my next Battle of Frost and Fire, which which is going to keep the ball rolling in two different ways if I cast it in the Chapter 3 turn. But your way is also a good idea.
Dude, I'm so ready for Yorion to be banned. Oops, I'm not supposed to say that part out loud.
Well, I'm ready for Starnheim Unleashed to be great, so maybe we'll both get our wish.
Does this one do anything for you, though? Do you think it's going to show up?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like you could the fact that you could just bias your deck by playing, what if you don't have a lot of creatures, if you're just like a Bone Crusher Giant guy, or you've got, I don't know what other giants you'd play, like maybe you're a Teamer deck or something. It just seems like you would have some biased application for this. What if your only guys are Bone Crusher Giants? It might still make sense. This is like a not embarrassing sweeper at 5. I think it's really not that bad. I think the fact that it also hits Planeswalkers, like you could even set the Planeswalkers up with Stomp, the other side of Bone Crusher Giant, and then cast Battle of Frost and Fire, right? Like that's a pretty good 2-turn swingy dingy, and then I'm in. Turn 2, Scry 3, I just cast my Bone Crusher Giant that turn.
Who am I kidding? All I really want to do in this world is glimpse the multiverse, or between the Omen and Glimpse. I don't know. It's hard to resist. The only way I could possibly get away from that is with more Cosima action.
Well, you could just play Cosima, Bone Crusher Giant, and all these blue and red theme/card drawing cards. You could just crew Cosima's opposite side with the Bone Crusher Giant, and that will avoid any sort of bad feelings with Battle of Frost and Fire. And knowing you're going to Yorion all 3 of them, so you'll get Cosima back. They're not going to know what to do because you just played a Yorion, so Cosima will make it to the next turn where they can go hide on upkeep. Presumably to start it all again.
What do you think about the on the note of blue-white, that blue-white flyer, is it a box topper or whatever? The one that gives you a 1/1 flyer every time you exile one or more cards. So it's like 2 blue-white for a 2/3 flying vigilance. This is Radnar the Everwatchful, legendary spirit warrior. So 2 white-blue for a 2/3 flying vigilance. The first card you foretell each turn costs 0 to foretell, and so you can just play it and right away foretell. And not only did you save 2 mana, whenever you exile one or more cards from your hand and or permanents from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white creature spirit token with flying. So straight up, you just play this and immediately foretell something, and you got a mana savings, and then you've also got a 2/3 flying vigilance and a 1/1 flyer. And then if it lives at all, you're basically going to get a 1/1 flyer every turn, plus be saving mana. It's interesting in that it only rewards you for 1 token a turn, 1 exile, 1 foretell. So your turn is pretty much accounted for, because there's so many good blue-white foretell cards, not the least of which is your Starnheim, your Starnheim Flurry of Angels, because you can actually just curve perfect. You play this on turn 4, and then immediately foretell your Starnheim Unleashed, and on turn 5 you get your Broodmate Dragon.
Oh, that's hot. Yeah, so
definitely.
The foretell savings is pretty exciting, but the body is not. Right? So 4
but you're
mana
already
for
ahead.
2/3.
Yeah, but you have a 1/1 flyer on the way in.
So is the goal to play like four of these guys and then just like a ton of foretells so that you can immediately get value?
A lot. You don't have to be all in on foretell because you can only do this once a turn anyway. But yeah, I think ideally you want to play like 16 to 18 foretell cards or whatever.
No, you can do it multiple times, right? It's just the first one that's free, right?
Yeah, but you also No, that's fair, because you're getting a 1/1 flyer each time. I want to just save all the mana. But you're right. Every foretell you do is giving you another cantrip 1/1 flyer. So, yeah, the more the merrier. This guy seems amazing, dude. Let me rephrase. This guy seems good.
Yeah, I think amazing is too high for 3 toughness at 4.
Yeah, amazing is overstating it, but it is good.
Yeah, I just can't imagine the size of this blue-white deck I want to play. Right? It's just...
Why? Okay,
it's beyond Yorion.
Well, you want to go bigger?
No, I mean just like there's too many cards.
Oh,
I don't want to go Yorion.
No.
I mean, just say like.
No, I think these foretell decks. No. You don't have to. You don't have to do all that. In fact, you can just. You don't even have to play Yorion in the blue-white deck. I mean, you can, but like, you don't necessarily go that way. If you're. So look. Okay, there's some dope foretell cards, but you don't have to play 4 of all of them. Right, like obviously, like some of like Behold the Multiverse is super dope, and I think that Saw It Coming, easy to play a lot of that action.
Oh, Saw It Coming is amazing with this card.
Absolutely, Saw It Coming is pretty darn good. Anyway, think of it this way: if you were going to play a cancel that cycles already, what if you had a cancel that cycles, and when you cycle it, it draws a easier to cast counterspell? You know, that's what Saw It Coming is, right?
I think Saw It Coming is very good, and obviously you would play 4 copies in a deck with Ranar.
What do you think about the sweeper, man?
I like it.
Yeah, I think the sweeper's pretty good. Doomscar, 3 white, destroy all creatures, foretell 1 white. Plus, if you're mana screwed, you can just foretell this, and on turn 3, bust this out. Or on turn 4, but you're mana screwed, so you don't even have a 4th land. You're just like, Doomscar, taste it. Oh,
it's good. I mean, I think I'm mostly just going to cast it for 5. But I think that's fine.
Really?
I mean, 5 is that's what cards like this cost a lot of the time. I mean, it's okay.
I think 2+3 is the better mode on this.
I'm not saying what the better mode is. I'm saying I'm just going to cast.
Okay, how about this? On turn 5, you cast it for 3, and you just still have counterspell mana open.
So I think there's just a kind of a gameplay qualitative difference when you're foretelling a Wrath, right? They just don't dump all their stuff onto the battlefield if you foretold a Wrath already. Like
how do they know? Like they don't know. As long as you're playing enough other foretell cards, like when you foretell a card, like as long as like if your deck, you know, maybe this time it's Saw It Coming, maybe it's Behold the Multiverse. As long as you're playing a critical mass of foretell cards, they don't know that this time you had your Wrath. You know.
That's a good point. I guess. Yeah, I didn't really think about like the difference between foretell and morph, right? Like foretell, I think there's really just a lot of I don't know if gamesmanship is the wrong word, right? But like, you know, when you're
I know what you mean.
Yeah, like morph and constructed was different, right? Like you morph and like, all right, I know what that is, right? Like you 9 times out of 10, it's either this 3/3 with Death Touch or this thing that draws a card, right? Something like that, right? But I guess if you're playing like 16 foretell cards or something,
or more, there's so many good ones in blue-white. It's not like you couldn't just have a Glorious Protector. You know, like maybe you have Glorious Protector this time. Maybe maybe it's Doomscar, maybe it's Glorious Protector, maybe it's Starnheim Unleashed. It's not like Alrund's Epiphany is a 0. I think Alrund's Epiphany is a little bit better in some kind of a Battle Mammoth deck. But I think that a blue-white deck, it's like there are a ton of legitimate options you could have.
Well, Glorious Protector is fantastic with the Everwatchful. Right? Like, you just play him, and then you just, like, foretell the Glorious Protector. You get your 1/1 payoff. Cool. And then, like, forever after, when they try to kill him, you can profit.
Yeah, I mean, hell, you can even blink something else and just get an extra 1/1 flyer. There's so many tactical plays you can make.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think that the foretell sequencing, I hadn't really thought about how the actual experience of playing it was going to be, Rather, I was just kind of imagining, all right, foreteller, they know that it's going to be. But they're not going to know.
No, how would it? It's not. It could easily be Behold the Multiverse or Saw It Coming.
You're right. I'm just so used to Morph, right? Where it's like, all right, it's Morph or it's Megamorph. You like literally know what it's going to be, right?
Yeah, it's like, oh, is it Death Mist Raptor or is it the Den Protector that gets back the Death Mist Raptor?
I mean, yeah, it was like always like when I was playing it was always Den Protector, right? So like, no surprise, it was Den Protector, and then I picked up Den Protector, like that. That's how it always was. But like, you know, there were very few. Even with the green white Megamorph deck only had like 2 kinds of morphs, right? It was so this is going to be different. Yeah, I think
I'm excited, man. All right, awesome, dude.
What's your favorite this week?
Good question. Let's see. My mind's telling me to pick another cantrip, but my body is telling me, honestly, it's probably just to pick another cantrip.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's the Unleash for me. I want that card to be good so badly. I really want to play that card.
That's fair. I think I'm going to go with the Angel, the 3/4 flying ambush. Like, just blow them out, respond, like you just flash down your 3/4 Angel and then blink everything, get it all back in response to their sweep resolving, ambush them.
It's actually insane the amount of different kinds of counterplay you can have. Like, if you have like 3 cards foretold, one of them's a 3/4 flash, one of them's a counterspell, one of them's a wrath. Like,
and you're foretelling all these cards where they can't get hit by duress.
Oh, man, it's chaos. Like, I love it now. It's totally looking at this a different way. Thank you.
Awesome.
I appreciate that. All right.
See you next week.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play Dredge, he's a jailer, hey. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis state. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind. Trapped in a vault with nothing but time. Parents and my friends were the key to find. Magic gave me purpose and drive. The game, the love, it kept me alive. Visions, a better weather light inside. See through the mirage, gotta survive. Dreaming, someday I find a way. Gotta repay the game we play. Don't know what to do, so I just